Good morning, everybody. My name is Carolyn Turner, and I have to tell you, I taught here many long years ago when the school first opened, and all of this was not here. This whole section of school was not here. There were this one floor of classes. We had pods, pod 1, pod 2, pod 3, pod 4, and it was very different then than it is now, but it was fun. We had a good time. I taught history then. Then I left here and went over to Noonan High School and taught history. So I was in the classroom 41 years. So that was a good long time that was a good long time to teach history, but it was fun and I really liked it. We always like coming back here. We understand you've already learned about the Civil War. Have you already learned about the battle that was fought here? Yes, no? You have? Good. So these two people are members of our board of directors for Browns Mill Battlefield. This is Ronnie North and his wife Missy. And of course, we all like history. We all support the battlefield. And we hope that, well, maybe some of you ride bikes out there. A lot of kids ride bikes out there, mountain bikes. There's a big mountain biking group out there. And also just people in the neighborhood walk their dogs or, they enjoy coming out to the battlefield. But we're going to talk more about life, what it was like before, like this, and then after, what it was like after the battle was fought, after the end of the war, because it was, of course, everybody was poor at that point. So, Ronnie, you want to start first?
On uniforms and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll start with these. Here we have a Enfield 1858 Cavalry carbine, which the cavalry would have carried, and it has some special things, and it's a very valuable. And both of these are real. And this other one is an 1842 model, and this would have been carried by the infantry. And we'll put that over here, and we'll go. Maybe we will. And I'll go through some of the things that I'm wearing. Of course, you had to have a hat, and hat came in all different sizes: felt hats, straw hats, and this big tall hat here to make you look more imposing. You also had to have your own water, so everybody knows this is a canteen. And you had to have your haversack or your pocketbook. And inside there, you might have something like maybe a Bible or book, some paper and pencil. You might have something to do a little cooking with and something to eat with, fork and knife. And you would have to carry all that. And then whatever food rations you were given would also be inside this little haversack. And you would have to carry that with that weight, of course, the weight of this, and then we'll take this off so I can get to everything else. And here we have a cartridge box which would carry the bullets, and you would actually take out, and it would be wrapped in paper. You would take one out, tear it with your teeth, pour it in, then you would pull out the ramrod, ram it down, return the ramrod, because you're going to need that later if you're going to shoot again, and then you would actually cock the weapon, and in this little box would be a little cap that would go on top of here, and then you're ready to shoot. It'd take all that just to shoot. And also, if you were lucky, an officer or a good cavalryman, you would have a pistol, and this is my holster. Has no pistol in it due to safety regulations. Let's see, I can set that down. These are some standard uniforms. This being the famous Confederate butternut in a brown color, kind of the natural. It would have been dyed by crushing up acorns or some type of a nut. This being a felt hat. This is another variation of gray, and it has blue piping, which denotes it infantry. And then the yellow piping is considered to be cavalry. And this is the standard issue Union uniform, which is in the dark blue, which would have been dyed with indigo, and sky blue pants, which were standard issue. And of course, the Union and the Confederate would both be the same. And this is called, usually the Iron Brigade wore these tall hats, so you would, this one doesn't really fit, but so that you would look like you were a little taller and maybe a little meaner when you walked out on the battlefield. But that covers these. And then we have some bullets over here. These represent the Union 3-band, and then we have some Confederate Enfield and the 2-band bullets. Of course, over here we have a cannonball that was, this is the size cannonball that would have fit the cannons at Brown's Mill battle. And then we have some other relics left over from some soldiers, from pocket knives, bullets, and buttons, and then a Hotchkiss shell, which was a cylindrical, is that?
Cylindrical.
Thank you. And it would have been fired, and this is the base of one, and that was shot in a rifled cannon, where this was used in a smooth bore. Now, would we like to go on about the doctor?
We can.
Or would you like to do that? I'll let you do that.
Okay, whatever. We cooperate. I want to tell you that this is a map of the battlefield. How many of you have been out there? You know where it is. Excellent, excellent. It's off of Old Corinth Road. Anybody know where Haynes Junkyard is? Everybody know where Haynes Junkyard is? You need to see it if you hadn't, if you don't know about it. But if you right past Haynes Junkyard, you turn to the left onto Millard Farmer Road, and there's the battlefield. When you turn in, this is the entrance right here, the parking area and the restroom building. So you see how small an area that is. This is the acreage that incorporated all of the fighting. And it was a cavalry battle, so it was on horseback, and so they just moved. It was like waves everywhere. And of course, they got off of their horses at, to actually do the fighting. But this is why the battlefield is so large. And we worked with the State Preservation Office in Atlanta. We've been working with them for years to try to get recognition for the battlefield. And we just this year got the battlefield on the National Register for Historic Places. So that's a real honor for us to have it. But they're the ones who decided how big the map should be that incorporated all of the fighting area. And mainly it's because relics have been found out there. And all the stuff that's up here is authentic. It comes from the battlefield. Different people through the years have been out there looking and, searching. There are lots of people that actually have died already who had huge collections of guns and knives and rifle parts and anything that they might have used in the actual battle. But what we have up here, these are authentic. Ronnie talked about this one. This is probably my favorite because these were three, and it's soldier number 1, soldier number 2, soldier number 3. These were Union soldiers, and the way that we know that is because of the bullets that they had. The battle was so spread out. When it was over, and it was very, very wooded, very, very out in the woods, nobody knew where everybody had ended up. These were 3 soldiers who were killed. Their bodies were never found. They were never buried, and so they deteriorated. And somebody several years ago who was searching found the knife first. These are knives that would have been in each one of his pocket. They were actually located over the edge of a terrace or an embankment, and they were guarding the retreat from the battle, the Union as they retreated from the battle. And so they fell. The Confederate soldiers were standing up on top of the hill, firing down on them. They fell and were never found. So here is the knives that were in their pockets, the buttons from their uniform, and the bullets that were either theirs that they had on them, or they had been shot. So some of them are Union bullets and some of them are Confederate bullets. And I like this one probably the most because it tells a story. And, not always a happy story, but nevertheless, a real story. Okay. Do you know, all of you know that Newnan was a hospital town? Yeah, all of Newnan was taken over by wounded. When they first organized to have Newnan as a hospital town, there were reasons. One was water. There are plenty of water. Downtown, of course, downtown was very, very small, but the courthouse was in the same place it is now. And on each corner there was a well. And so that was indication that there was plenty of water because everybody had horses. Everybody traveled with horses then. And they had horse troughs, water troughs, so that the horses could get plenty after a long ride or a long trip. And so there was plenty of water. The war had not reached here. There was plenty of food. All the people who lived out in the country who grew their own food, there was plenty of food. And they thought, okay, we'll have 500 wounded people. By the end of the war, 10,000. They had taken care of 10,000 wounded soldiers, Union and Confederate, in the hospitals, the buildings downtown. They weren't actually built as hospitals, but one was the courthouse. And all the churches were used. People's homes were used. And then they divided up the town. On East Court Square was one hospital. West Court Square was on the other. They divided up the town. And as the men went away to war, who owned the stores downtown, they closed their stores and they moved all the goods in their stores to somebody else's. And by the end of the war, there were maybe 2 stores left. Of course, there were not very many goods left over at that point to fill their stores with, but they did the best they could at that point. So lots and lots and lots and lots of soldiers downtown. These are implements that would have been used on the wounded. Can you tell what this is? A syringe. Isn't that a wicked looking thing? Yeah, now you go to the doctor and they give you a shot and it doesn't hurt. These did because they had cut a hole in order to put the medicine in. This is one of those probes. If somebody had a bullet in them, they just dug down in there. They cut sliced a place so they could just stick this down in there and dig for the bullet. Got any idea what this is? If you got shot in the arm, it's a bone saw, and they just sawed it off. Nasty. There was a doctor in here last year who came for our presentation, and after it was over, I said to him, "Is it possible that there might be some DNA on this?" He said, "Sure." Ugh. That kind of thing makes my stomach wiggly, but he said it could be some left on there after all these years. This was used. This is one of those things that was used by the nurses in the hospital. Very common. I had never seen one until a few years ago. A nurse would hold this like this, put soup or water, some kind of liquid down in there. If the wounded person, man, was very, very hurt, really, really bad, she could lift his head up like this and pour it without him having to sit up to drink. She could just pour that. And I thought, that was pretty smart, considering how serious all of those people could have been hurt. It was pretty bad, pretty wicked. Okay. These are mine. I don't want those to fall off. These are mine, and these are authentic. They are letters or orders or bills that were done in the hospitals during the war. These are real. So, and of course they had an ink well. That was, no ballpoint pens or anything. They had ink that they had to have. And these are the pens that they used with the different points on them for whatever reason they use them. But if you can, when you come up here and look at these things, I wish you'd take a look, see if you can read what their script was very, very fancy. Everybody tried to, I think they tried to outdo each other, but maybe that's not true. But take a look at these. I like it because it has the names on them, the signatures of the doctors, and we're real proud of knowing who those people were at that point because they did a lot of good. I want to show you some things about life at that time. Think about having 10,000 wounded soldiers. You know what this is? There were no flushing. I know it, isn't that gross? It's gross, but that's the truth. There was no running water. So here you go, buddy. This, and then, you know, whatever. You have to do what you have to do. And so then what do you do with it? You have to take it outside, you know, dispose of whatever. Yeah, but that's okay. Did they have any toilet paper? No, they did not. So, yep, that's right. Anybody seen a leaf that big? I picked that up out in my front yard. I have one of those trees that you know, the leaves look like tape, like dinner plates. But, you know, they put it to good use. That's what they had to do. So I always like to, this is reality, you know. This is reality. And I have to tell you that when I was in college, my grandmother and granddaddy finally got a bathroom on their back porch. Finally. And I just thought, now then I look back on that and I think, good grief. Good grief. How did they do that? Well, that's what they had to do. You know, that you deal with what you got sometimes. And I have to add this too. Do you know why? This is just general history. Some parts of history is a lot of fun. Uh-oh, let me make sure I can get this open. Why was the umbrella invented? Use your imagination. If you lived, say, London, if you lived in London, or if you lived in New York City or Baltimore or somewhere, large city, okay, Ronnie's going to show you what happened. And the buildings were 2 stories. Nobody had a backyard. Nobody had a place to dispose of what they had upstairs. And so they just dumped it out the window. Somebody got really smart. Somebody got really smart and invented an umbrella so they wouldn't get splashed. And that's the stuff that's all on the streets was one of the reasons why there were so many diseases, because nothing, I mean, it had to rain in order for it to get washed away. And where did it wash to? The local lake. And so then where did their water come from? The local lake. Yuck. But they didn't know. They didn't know about germs. They didn't know about all that stuff for years. And so thank goodness for an umbrella. We don't have to think about having to use it then, like they did then. Okay. These were donated to us from a lady. And you see how little her feet were? Yeah. Do you think we have that size feet now? No. Why? Because we wear flip-flops. Yeah. But we're bigger than they were. People now grow larger than people back then because their health was different. Their food was different. You know, it was just not as healthy, and they were not as healthy as we are now. But I always think that these are so amazing because her feet were so little. That just amazes me. But, you know, you study history, you see all kinds of things. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's bad. That's just history, you know. So, little bitty feet.
You want to tell what these are?
Oh, yeah, okay. Actually, everybody.
That's winter wear.
That's winter wear, yes. I'm going to put that right there. All the women, well, and this is very, very true. Even my grandmother told me about, you were not supposed to show any skin. Your hands, maybe your fingers, this part of your face, everything else was supposed to be hidden. They were supposed to be very ladylike and, you know, lots and lots of rules. So this was a bonnet that they would have worn. Well, some people worked in the farm, you know, in the farm, outside, whatever. This was more like a summer bonnet to keep the sun out out of your eyes and protect your face, but they were pretty much required to wear these. My grandmother told me that when she and my granddaddy got married, they lived in Birmingham, and they couldn't get on the train because she forgot her hat and her gloves. It was still very, very strict rules. You know, once a lady got pregnant, you did not go outside, period. Not outside, because nobody was supposed to see you like that. And they never said the word pregnant. They said PG. They whispered it. Strict, strict, strict rules. So thank goodness we don't have to do all this now. We don't have to be bothered with all that stuff now. Although it's kind of fun to think about. And they had language with their fans. If they wanted to be coy, if they were flirting with a man, a guy, they would do like this. Or, you know, they had all kinds of, if she was mad at him, she would go, uh-oh, that wrong way. You had to know all the rules to go along with fans. But that was just life that's different. You girls want to carry a fan. Besides that, there was no air conditioning. And so this was their cooling off. That was it. That was it. But when you really, and usually there were about, every woman had on about 4 layers underneath, because you had to cover up. Nobody could, as you swing, nobody could see your legs, nothing, ankles, nothing like that. And so everything was covered up, like you have on, that you would have had on 2 pairs of pants. But they weren't called pants, they were called pantaloons, you know, that kind of thing. But, so that was really hot, really hot. And so they did like this. This cools you off underneath. It's like air conditioning. And you know that, so you didn't get in trouble if you did that, but if anybody could see anything, that was very embarrassing. Against all rules, girls, against all rules. You think the guys like that? Probably not. Probably not. Okay. Oh, we forgot about this. This one I can't take out of this box. This is a piece of wood that was found. A tree fell out at the battlefield, and this was found like 2 or 3 years ago, maybe. And it still has the bullets in it. If you look at it real closely, you can see the metal bullets in there from how many years ago? 1864. So this is very precious to us, because you don't find that kind of thing anymore. Okay. Oh, I know I have one photograph. The Union had 2 cannons out there. They were called 3-inch ordnance rifles because they're small, a rifle. And this was at a reenactment that we did. When did we do this one? 2015, maybe? 2015, I think. And I thought that I love it because it's in mid-explosion, right in the middle of the explosion. The fire's coming out the top and out the front. And it takes that many men working to get it to fire once. And so they had to be as fast as they could be. You know how fast how the time between each firing?
About 30 seconds.
Yeah. And it was that way with the rifles that he was showing you. They had to be fast, and they were on horseback, and they could go through that standard, that movement, half a minute, fire the next time, fire the next time, fire the next time. Can you imagine being able to do that? Could you learn how to do that? Maybe. If you had to, I bet you could. I bet you could, yeah. We appreciate that all of you came today. We like being at OP Evans. This concludes our program.